E. Williams. Oh, is there anybody we're waiting for? We can wait. Absolutely. Mhm. Oh, we got past the mouse.
William? Oh, there you are. Okay, I was wondering who's it. I'll use this one, and this one will be for questions and answers. Oh, there we go. Ah, there we go. Well, I want to welcome everyone to Trinity United Church of Christ. We thank you for being with us for this community, town hall community meeting on water. And we are grateful that President Kerry Steele is with us to be able to share information. For those who are online, who are streaming, I'm trying to get the setup. Oh, there we go. You switched the cameras. Thank you very much. So this is camera 2. It's camera 1. So for anyone who's going to be at the podium, This is camera 1, and this is camera 2. We will shift the cameras so that those who are streaming will have a direct connection with you. So be aware of that there is another audience that is present that is streaming with us. So I'd just like to say again, thank you for being with us. We are delighted that you are here. We are a church in the heart of the community, ever seeking the community's heart, and this is part of what we do. It's part of our mission to make sure that the wider community is connected to the resources and information that will allow them to thrive. And since we are in the sanctuary, I'm going to ask that we would have a word of prayer before we begin this conversation. Gracious and most merciful God, in whom we live, move, and have our being, we are grateful for this conversation, this town hall meeting. We recognize the power and the importance of water, for it is you who spoke so clearly in Genesis, speaking about the separation of the firmament from the water. And it is you who communicated so beautifully and powerfully that Jesus Christ is the living water. And so as we come talking about water and its importance in community, may this be an informative session and an empowering session, that we may have knowledge and also gain wisdom in order to take action based on the knowledge that we have received. We thank you, and we are delighted to have this conversation for those who are physically present, and for those who are online, and those who will eventually watch as this is repeated over and over on a variety of social media networks. We are grateful and we are thankful. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Good afternoon, and thank everyone for coming. My name is Gervette Orgain, and I am the co-chair of Church and Society Ministry that is hosting this town hall this afternoon. I want to introduce the co-chair, Harold Williams, and the program chair for this event. Harold is a member, long-term member. He received his Associate of Arts in African American Studies from City Colleges of Chicago and a paraprofessional certification in education. He is a proud member of the United States Army and is a combat soldier where he was deployed to Afghanistan. While being enlisted in the Army, his military occupations consisted of chaplain assistant, culinary specialist, infantry, field artillery, recruit in marketing, and military funeral honors. He is a proud father of 2 beautiful daughters, Willow 8 and Winter 6. He has always been socially and culturally conscious and a great leader in the community while spreading God's word. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Harold Williams. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Trinity, friends and family, for those who are here and watching online. Don't do shout outs, but if I did, I say shout out to the CIS ministry here at this church. We have over 70, but our goal for this ministry is to make sure that we get the information from the community, bring it into the church, and the information that we receive over the pulpit to help spread the gospel outside of the church. Thanks for coming out. So, little house rules. This will be peaceful. There should be index cards that should be going around. You will write your information down, and the questions will be asked by President Steele and also her staff that she brought along here. The purpose of this meeting, because there's a lot of things going on with water, and we want to make sure that we clear up any misunderstanding. President Steele cannot control the rain. All right, let's make sure we hear that. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. I feel my help coming. So she can only help maintain it and to make sure that there's nothing wrong with our water, people. So this is a real serious matter, and plug, join the CIS ministry, Church and Society, and that's it.
I want to thank Harold and certainly thank our senior pastor, Reverend Dr. Willis Moss III. I'd like to introduce now our speaker, who has taken the time, as well as her staff. President Carrie Steele, in January 2019, became the first African-American woman in the more than 130-year history of the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago to be elected by the Board Commissioners to serve as president. She is currently serving her third term. President Steele currently serves as chairman for the Affirmative Action and Maintenance and Operations Committees. She is also the vice chairman of the Federal Legislation and Industrial Waste and Water Pollution Committees. She is a chemist, environmentalist, licensed real estate broker, and a community leader. President Steele has received numerous awards, including Outstanding Public Official of the Year, Congressional History Makers, Trailblazers Award, National Civil Rights Hall of Fame inductee, and Phenomenal Woman Award. She is also a member of the State Treasurer Michael Frerich's African American Advisory Committee and Delta Sigma Theta sorority. Please join me in welcoming President Carrie Steele, who has a long bio, and you will hear her presentation. Thank you, President Steele.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, first, I would like to give an honor to God, and I usually at this point would say, I bring you greetings from my church home, but since I am home today, I will say, hello, my fellow Trinitarians, and thank you, Pastor Moss, for allowing me and Water Reclamation to present this afternoon. I would also like to thank the Church and Society for putting this together. We appreciate the hospitality and just you all helping us get our word out about water reclamation. What the official name is, the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. You will also hear us possibly call it the district, or you'll hear us say MWRD. But before I get too far ahead of myself, as stated, my name is Carrie Steele, and I'm president of the Board of Commissioners at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. Today I have with me, supporting me, I see two people really quick that I would like to acknowledge. Our Vice President, Teresa Flynn, thank you for coming out this afternoon. And I see Representative Marcus Evans, thank you for stopping by. Now, a little bit about myself. As stated, I'm a chemist and environmentalist. I've been a commissioner at Water Reclamation for a little over 10 years, and I've served as president of the Board of Commissioners for a little over 4 years. I was elected unanimously. It's an internal vote by the Board of Commissioners. But today we're here to share information about what we do at Water Reclamation. I'll start with a brief overview, and then our goal is, by the end of this meeting, that you will know exactly who we are, what we do, how you can be a good neighbor, and most importantly, how to reach us. Now, the MWRD, we treat our wastewater, the region's wastewater, manage stormwater, and protect our primary drinking water source, Lake Michigan. We own and operate 7 water treatment plants across Cook County, 23 pumping stations, and 560 miles of intercepting sewers. Now, your local sewers feed into those intercepting sewers so that the water can get to MWRD. Basically, I try to explain it to everyone that we take care of the water that leaves your house. So we're not responsible for your drinking water. The city of Chicago provides you with your fresh water, your fresh drinking water. But we take the water that leaves your house. So when you flush the toilet, when you take a shower, when you run your dishwasher, we get that water. Water reclamation, reclaim the water. We reclaim your wastewater, treat it before it's released into the waterways, which is like the Chicago River, Des Plaines River, Calumet River. Then it goes down to the Mississippi River, Gulf of Mexico. You never see that dirty water again. We have essential workers that work 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Now today, I have various department heads and senior level staff that will present and talk about their departments and the projects they're working on, so you can see how we all work together to make this happen. At Water Reclamation, we have almost 2,000 employees. We have a $1.2 billion budget, and we have been able to maintain a AAA bond rating, but we wouldn't be able to do that without our staff. I basically deliver the message, but they help make everything run for the day-to-day. So I felt it was important that they come out to talk to you and to make sure that we can answer all of the technical questions you might have. I'm a chemist, but I am not an engineer. So they're here to help me make sure that we answer every question you have. But first, before we get into each department and their presentations, we have a video that we would like to play that gives a quick overview of what we do. This is a video that we usually play when you come out and have tours of our facilities.
Welcome to the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago, also known as the MWRD. The MWRD is the government agency responsible for treating wastewater and managing stormwater for the Chicago region, which means we clean sewage and work to reduce flooding. Even though we have the word water in our name, one thing we're not responsible for is drinking water. Most people in our service area get their water from the City of Chicago Department of Water Management. The MWRD was founded in 1889 to reverse the flow of the Chicago River to protect Lake Michigan and public health. We built 61 miles of canals, 7 water reclamation plants, 110 miles of deep tunnels, and hundreds of miles of intercepting sewers that connect local sewers to our treatment facilities. We clean an average of 1.3 billion gallons of water every day, transforming wastewater, stormwater, and urban runoff into clean water while recovering valuable resources like energy and fertilizer. We continue to be a world-leading wastewater and stormwater management utility focused on flood mitigation, resource recovery, sustainability, resilience, and innovation. We hope you enjoyed this brief overview of our treatment processes before you head out to see everything for yourself. Rain and dirty water from homes, businesses, and storm drains flows through sewers by gravity to our 7 water reclamation plants. Each of our plants use similar processes to clean all that dirty water. Here's an example of an intake structure. This one is at the Stickney Water Reclamation Plant. The intake structure is the final destination for miles and miles of sewers, and it is about 45 feet underground. After the water arrives at the plant, we pump it up from sewer level to the surface so it can be cleaned. But before we let the water get to the pumps, we need to remove any large debris that could cause damage. To do this, we send it through core screens. These screens catch flushable wipes, litter, and leaves. Over the years, the screens have removed some interesting things, such as car wheels and bowling balls. Once we've screened out the large debris, the water continues onto the pumps. Here in the pump and blower building at the Stickney plant, you can see the pumps are well below ground level. They're down at the elevation of the sewers that are coming into the plant. These large boxes are soundproof enclosures that hold blowers, basically giant fans. Air is crucial for our treatment process. The blowers account for 50% of our energy use at the plants. After the water is pumped up to the surface, it flows through the rest of the plant by gravity, similar to a river. The first stop for the water after the pumps is our aerated grit tanks, where we use some of that air from the blowers to help rocks, sand, and gravel sink to the bottom. This debris goes to a dumpster and is sent to a landfill. Next, the water flows into what we call primary tanks. In primary tanks, we let the water sit very still. You can see these boards are moving very slowly across the surface of the water. They scrape anything that has floated to the surface, usually a mix of fats, oils, grease, and plastic, and slowly the system pushes this debris to the end of the tank, and then that material is disposed of in a dumpster. Meanwhile, underwater, the organic solids mixed with the wastewater are sinking to the bottom, and those are removed and go through a separate solids process. We're actually able to remove 70 to 80% of the solids from the water in primary treatment. Notice how clear the water is here, and while you can definitely see there is some debris mixed in it, the water is already significantly cleaner. After primary treatment, the water flows on to secondary treatment. Secondary treatment consists of two parts: secondary aeration tanks and final settling tanks. The aeration tanks work just like a fish aquarium, where air bubbles add dissolved oxygen to the water for the fish to breathe with their gills. In the case of our aeration tanks, we add dissolved oxygen to make the conditions just right for beneficial bacteria that help us clean the water. This carefully maintained population of microorganisms consumes the remaining solids and then clumps together to settle. After the aeration tanks, the water enters final settling tanks, where the clumps of bacteria sink to the bottom and clean water flows off the top. During warmer months when there is recreation on waterways, we disinfect water before we release it from several of our water reclamation plants. At the O'Brien plant in Skokie, we accomplish this by sending water through the super powerful ultraviolet light bulbs using 896 lamps that provide a low pressure, high output performance. The UV light deactivates any microbes left in the water so that they can no longer reproduce. At our Calumet plant, we accomplish the same thing using a chlorination-dechlorination process, in which we add chlorine to the water and then send it through a maze-like contact structure, and then chemically remove the chlorine before sending the water out into the Little Calumet River. What about the solids? The solids removed during treatment go to anaerobic digesters, where a different biological process breaks them down and produces biogas that we use to heat and cool our plants. After leaving the digesters, the solids are designated by the US EPA as biosolids and can be used as a soil amendment. These biosolids undergo additional processing to remove water. Centrifuges operate like a spin cycle of a washing machine. At other facilities, we air dry the solids. Just like the water we release from our plants, our biosolids are subject to strict standards for quality. They're continuously tested to confirm we're meeting those standards. So, we start with rain and dirty, used water and end up with clean water and biosolids. And we achieve this using gravity, air, and helpful bacteria. Now it's time for you to see this amazing process for yourself. Enjoy the tour, be safe, and find out how you can help us succeed in our mission to protect our water environment.
All right, so that was just a video that we played before our tours, but I thought it was important for us to play it before we got into the presentations from our department heads, because it gives a quick overview of everything that we do. And as you can see, there's a lot going on at MWRD at every treatment plant. So today you will hear from our engineering department, our public affairs office about outreach and education, our principal civil engineer that focuses on environmental injustice or environmental justice, our human resources department, and our diversity section. And then we'll be available to answer any questions and concerns that you may have. I also hope that on your way in, you picked up some of the materials that were on the table. And if you didn't, please pick them up on the way out, because they're brochures that are very informative, and you might think of something you might want to reach out to us and ask us later that you don't ask us this afternoon. So it has all our contact information and everything on every piece of literature or brochure that you probably will pick up. But first, I would like to introduce Dr. Catherine O'Connor, who will discuss sewers, stormwater management, green infrastructure, and local projects. Let's welcome Dr. O'Connor.
Thank you, President Steele. Thank you, Pastor. Thanks for this opportunity, and thank you for joining. This is a very important conversation that we'd like to have, and I have some slides prepared. Could we adjust? And the next slide, please. I would like to just take a moment and discuss. Most of my comments are going to be related to stormwater management, and alleviating flooding is our #1 priority at MWRD. We clean the water. We've been cleaning the water for 130 years. We do that very well. Now it's time to focus on the communities and the misery of flooding. So I have the schematic of our President Steele, Vice President Flynn are here. The Board of Commissioners adopted the Cook County Stormwater Management Plan in 2007. Prior to that, MWRD had no responsibility with respect to flooding. And our very firm leadership went back to the legislature in 2014 to get authorization to work on local stormwater flooding projects. So I think that's bold leadership, and it's because we care. We need to have this conversation with you. So I'm going to have some advice. President Steele mentioned we're here to tell you what you can do, and I'll be happy to hear you tell me what I need to do. So we need to be all part of this conversation. So very quickly, next slide, please. We have the posters up as well. This is a schematic of how your local sewer works. So over to the left, highlighted in green, that's the roof load. And many houses, I drove around the community this morning. I drive around many of these communities. Some people have these downspouts disconnected, and most do not. So now that precipitation has gotten worse, in 1960, our design guideline for a 100-year storm event was 6 inches of rain in 24 hours. In 1989, the Illinois State Water Survey updated that from 6 inches to rain. The new standard for 24 hours was 7.5 inches. And again, in 2019, the rainfall frequency data was updated, and it's 8.58 inches. So my point with that is, what was built in 1960 and met code for protection for 100 years, we now need 40% more detention to protect people from flooding. Do we have that real estate? We don't have that real estate handy. But what we can do is disconnect these downspouts and find green space and make sure we have local vegetation and trees to absorb that rainwater. So for a typical Chicago home, on July the 2nd, when we got 8 inches of rain in the worst affected communities, a typical Chicago home had 8,000 gallons of water from their roof into the combined sewer. The combined sewer does not have capacity for 8,000 gallons of rainwater. A typical home would have used, over the course of 15 hours, on the order of 400 gallons. Now just an individual home has another 8,000 gallons. Those sewer pipes could not convey that flow, and the path of least resistance is back up and into the basement. That is the reality. We need to work together to disconnect. Next slide, please. So the Stickney plant, anybody north of 87th Street, all of that flow goes to the Stickney plant. On a typical day, the Stickney plant treats 500 million gallons, but to take in stormwater, we can seamlessly go up to 1.4 billion gallons. So the plants are equipped to take a considerable amount of stormwater. On July the 2nd, the people that flooded and were devastated by the flooding, that flow didn't get to the plant. The flooding happened prior to the deep tunnel filling. So I have another slide, please. I'd like to take a moment and talk about types of flooding. Overbank flooding is the flooding that is when the river reaches floodplain and it overflows into neighborhoods. That's not the case anywhere in Chicago. The Albany Park Tunnel took care of the last riverine flooding in the city of Chicago. Seepage into basements and wall foundations, that's another type of flooding, and you'll see clear water in your basement, and you need to have somebody come out and regrout and protect the basement. Our water table's pretty high in Chicago, so our basements really are like in-ground pools. We need to make sure that those walls are secure. The next type is ponding water entering window wells and basement doors. We need to armor those doors and the window wells to make sure that that rainwater doesn't come in. But then the last type is the basement backup. There just isn't conveyance in those pipes, and the path of least resistance, there is not enough room for that flow to go, and it comes up, and it's awful. It's combined sewage, and it's in your basement. It destroys property, and it's our #1 priority to work with you and make sure that we minimize that, alleviate flooding as much as possible. Next slide, please. So here is the configuration. The stormwater comes into the local collection system, into the intercepting sewers that President Steele mentioned. We have 560 miles throughout the Cook County, and then the deep tunnel. So for many years, the deep tunnel and the reservoirs was our solution to flooding and flood mitigation in the combined sewer areas. That was approved by the Board of Commissioners when 6 inches of rain in 24 hours was a 100-year flood event. Now we're up 40% more volume needs to be accounted for. So the flooding we have is prior to the deep tunnel system being filled. So it comes from the local system out of your house. We want to disconnect all that clear water and find vegetative growth, places to water plants and trees, and keep that mostly wastewater that's coming to our facilities. We also have overflow action days where we encourage people not to run the dishwasher. Take another couple days before you do laundry and keep as much of that collection system open for conveyance as necessary. Next slide, please. So here's a photo of the deep tunnel. So in 1970, when the Board of Commissioners approved the tunnel and reservoir plan, these 33-foot diameter, the deepest are 300 feet below grade, all concrete line, that is what's conveying this stormwater, combined sewage during rain events. Now we understand that that's not enough. Next slide, please. From the deep tunnel, the water goes into the large reservoirs. We're very superstitious by nature. Our life is very weather dependent, so knock on wood. The Thornton Reservoir has never filled. It was commissioned in 2015. We've not had an appreciable combined sewer overflow into the Calumet system since that entire system has come online. However, we have the slide here that shows July 2nd, the west side, Cicero, Berwyn, and the west side of the city of Chicago, they got the 8 inches of rain on the order of 12 hours. We would have had a different story on the south side, and there still was, we're very empathetic, there still was significant flooding on the south side on July 2nd, and a second storm in July. Next slide, please. So here is the Thornton composite reservoir that has not filled since 2015, but some of you in the audience remember the terrible flood in 2008. We do understand that that reservoir would have filled in the flood in September of 2008. Next slide, please. So MWRD, the Board of Commissioners passed, and we have pursued a stormwater management master plan for the south side for the communities of Avalon Park, Englewood, Grand Crossing, and South Shore. And we evaluated planning needs, documented existing conditions, and it's very important that we document the existing conditions. Within 3 blocks, we find a wonderful place to put in green infrastructure that will be productive and could capture on the order of 300,000 gallons in a rain event. 3 blocks away, the hydraulics and the soil structure is such that green infrastructure will have no benefit. So these studies are very important, and from these studies, we've identified 10 projects that we're in conversation with the City of Chicago to prioritize and work on. And prior to the bold move of the Board of Commissioners, President Steele, Vice President Flynn, we wouldn't have had authorization until 2014 to do that. So I hope you can appreciate that we work very hard and we understand how terrible it is to have combined sewage in our homes, in our basements. Next slide, please. So this is just another schematic. Next slide, please. So what can we install? We need to install rain barrels, we need to disconnect, and we need to have meaningful green space to put this stormwater. Bioswales, we've installed bioswales, stormwater trees, and these amenities have other benefits. They're cooling for the neighborhood, they provide fresh air. So let's get together and green our neighborhoods and make them flood resilient. I'd like to just mention, next slide, please. Here are more permeable pavers. We have green alleys that we work with the Chicago Department of Transportation to install. Next slide, please. We also have a wonderful program, Space to Grow, where we are in partnership with Chicago Public Schools, Chicago Department of Water Management, MWRD, and Open Lands, and we take asphalt play lots in Chicago elementary schools and turn them into educational opportunities where they do absorb stormwater. The children have a play option and an educational tool for water stewardship. So we've worked with in our partnership and have completed 34 schools, and that's something we're very proud of, and that is strictly in the city of Chicago that we're able to work on those programs. Next slide, please. So MWRD is now accepting pre-applications for green infrastructure, and we work through municipalities. So we work through your aldermen or alderwomen in the city of Chicago, and we're accepting applications, and we have on the order of over 200 programs that are alleviating flooding. And since the program in 2014, we have reduced flooding or made flood resilient 17,000 structures throughout Cook County. Next slide, please. Here is a list of our resources, Understanding Your Sewer. I hope I've made that a little bit clearer, but there is a video on that. And the Green Guide is a step-by-step tutorial on how to disconnect your downspout and how to install a rain garden and a bioswale. Very detailed. The Green Neighbor Guide is out in the lobby. We also have Flood Prevention 101 on our website, and we do support the distribution of rain barrels. So thank you very much. We all have to be in this together. We all have our role, and I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. O'Connor. That was Dr. O'Connor from our engineering department. If I wanted to just try to point out a few takeaways from Dr. O'Connor's presentation. First, with climate change and these intense rainstorms increasing and becoming more unpredictable, the challenge is trying to keep up with what's happening in our environment. There will never be, I don't want to say never, but there is not one solution right now to control stormwater management. So we all need to work together, and it's somewhat of a combo that we have to do. We have to increase gray infrastructure. We have to increase green infrastructure. If you have your downspout still connected into the ground, we're asking that you please disconnect that downspout. You can disconnect the downspout and redirect it away from your house, or you can disconnect the downspout and place a rain barrel underneath. With the rain barrel, you're able to recycle water, conserve water, and you're still keeping all of that water out of your local sewer lines when we have those heavy downpours. One important way that you could protect your house, disconnecting that downspout, because when it rains really hard, water is trying to travel through the local sewer lines just to get to MWRD so that we can store that water and hold it until we're able to pump it into our treatment plants if necessary. That's why these two pictures right here are my favorite pictures, and they're the most important. If you have time, please look at it, because it's important for everyone to understand water has to travel from your house through the local sewer lines just to get to MWRD. So I often use the analogy when I'm out speaking, when I'm talking about the heavy downpours and the water getting to us, trying to stress for everyone to conserve water in their house during the heavy downpours. When I say, quit washing clothes or put off running the dishwasher or washing dishes, basically use as little water as possible when it's a heavy downpour, because you want to make sure you have space in the local sewer lines so the water can get to us. When we have that heavy downpour and the water's trying to get to us through that local line, sometimes it's like trying to drain a swimming pool with a straw. It's just so much water trying to get to us at one time. So those are my takeaways. Also, please report if you got any water in your basement. Call 311. Make sure that your flooding in your basement was reported, because we use those numbers when we're trying to pinpoint where projects should be and what's going on across Cook County, and when we're having conversations with the city of Chicago. So please stress for everyone to report. Anytime you get a drop of water in your basement, please report it to 311 and get that incident reporting number. All right, our next speaker is going to be our Public Affairs Department, or Public Affairs Outreach and Education. Ms. Allison Ford, can you please step up? Thank you. Give Allison Ford a round of applause.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Allison from the Office of Public Affairs. I've worked with the district for 12 years, and to tell you the truth, I never heard of it before I started working there. And I'm from the area. I'm from Munster, Indiana, so you would have thought I would have known the river was reversed a long time ago, but I didn't know that. So since I started here, we have grown our public affairs department. Thank you to Commissioners President Steele and our board. We have 13 people in the office right now. We make the videos that you've been watching with our star, our president. We do outreach. We do a lot of social media. We do a lot of speaking to classrooms and going to community events. We make these beautiful posters and graphics and flyers, so we're a busy department. One of our biggest messages the president just started speaking about is reducing your use of water before, during, and after storms. And we're trying to make it easy. So we've created an e-blast that we email people if they want to sign up. And can you put the next slide on? Because that shows where on our website that you could sign up. Next slide. Right there in the top right corner, you can see we have a little sign-up area. We also just introduced 2 weeks ago, Overflow Action Day alerts. We introduced text messaging. So now you can get a little reminder text, oh, don't use your water. So automatically I know, okay, I'm not going to be doing the laundry tonight. So we try to be helpful with the overflow action alerts. Then there's another way of collecting water on your property. As we've mentioned, green infrastructure. Next slide. We distribute, and you may be thinking, why are we trying to save the monarch butterfly? Well, the milkweed seed, which comes in these packets, is also a good stormwater tool. So it collects stormwater, and in the meantime, we're helping to save the monarch butterfly that are on the endangered list. So it has a dual purpose. We also have monarch milkweed fields at our water reclamation plants. So if you take a tour, I'll get to that in a minute, you'll be able to see those. Next slide. We spoke about trees collecting stormwater, so lo and behold, we have a free tree giveaway program. So the Calumet plant, which isn't too far from here, is the closest. You could pick up free trees there on Wednesdays between 9 a.m. and noon, and they're 18 inches, so they're not huge. But in 20 years, they're going to be really big, so don't plant it under a power line. And you can have as many of those as you want. There are a variety of oak trees, black pin, red, and white oak. So a medium-sized oak tree can help prevent flooding by absorbing 2,800 gallons of rainfall per year. So trees are very valuable. When my car broke down, here's a side story. I went to have my oil changed. This is in Indiana, and this was a month ago. And I left, they said, here, take your car. And I get about a block away from the oil change place. My tire flew off the car, so they didn't put the tire on correctly. And it was hot. It was July 19th. And lo and behold, there's a tree there. And I thought about this program, and I thought, thank you, tree, for being here, because it was keeping me cool while I waited for the tow truck. But I digress. Next slide. We have a storybook we worked on. So that's our tree slide. Here's our storybook. Where does it go? It's free. We also have animation. We'll come out to classes and do some readings. Kids love it. If you look at the top right corner, you'll see it's about these 3 students that travel in a variety of vehicles, and they go to the past to learn about our history and how we reversed the river. And it's geared for 4th graders and up, but a lot of my friends learned a lot about what we do based on this book and this animation, and we have it in multiple languages. Next slide. We have books available. It's on our website, so we make it easy to get. Next slide. Teachers, we like when teachers contact us and say, oh, can we have some books? Oh, yes, we'd love to give them to you. Next slide. So you've learned a lot about our plants. You've heard about it. But we give virtual tours once a month online. We started that during the pandemic since people couldn't come to us. And we get about 100, 200 people every month. And it's about an hour. And we take you behind the scenes of really places you can't see when you come into the live tour. Next slide. So speaking of live tours, come visit us. We'd be happy to have you. Any of our plants, you can either schedule it online, or you can call me, call the president's office, and we'll help schedule you and your group to come. Next slide. Everything's free. Next slide. We mentioned rain barrels. Right now, we have a very special, low-cost, discounted price, $10.75 for people over 65, and then it's $21.50. This all includes delivery, so it's very low cost right now, and that will end. We had this earlier this year, it ran out, and so our board approved it again for this year. I also, on the next slide, these are more of the resources. I hope they pass this out. If not, we can always provide you with the information. One other thing I wanted to mention was medication disposal on the next slide. Our plants, if you ever have pills in their bottles, cross off your personal information and then bring us the bottles, put them right into the receptacle. We collect hundreds of pounds of medicines each year because our treatment plants weren't designed to clean these pharmaceuticals out of our processes. And I think that covers everything. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. That was Allison Four. And just a reminder, if anyone wants to set up to go on a tour or take a classroom tour, if you do it through my office, I always usually meet the students out there. That's one of my passions, making sure that I educate more people that look like me to want to be in positions like the one I'm in, basically with a career in STEM or in the water industry. I clearly understand if you can't see it, you can't be it. I became a president at Water Reclamation, even a chemist, because I had an internship at Water Reclamation. So definitely, I try to push for everyone to know about water careers, know about careers in STEM. So please take advantage of those tours so we can get way more diversity than we have now, but increase the numbers in the water industry. Next up, we have Lolita Thompson, our principal civil engineer that focuses on environmental justice, local infrastructure, and community engagement. Lolita?
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here to speak on behalf of the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago about our environmental justice section. As President Steele mentioned, my name is Lolita Thompson, and I am the principal civil engineer for the environmental justice section. What I do is I work with all of the district departments to make sure that the environmental justice areas receive the same quality of service as all the other areas within our communities. I also look for ways to address environmental justice and climate justice needs in the community. And I believe my colleague is here, sitting in the back hiding, Edward Coleman. Stand up, raise your hand. I thought he was here, thought I saw him. Maybe he disappeared, okay. But he also works on diversity, equity, and inclusion issues in the district and in the communities that we serve. Next slide. And so when we look at environmental justice, I know many of you might be asking, what is that environmental justice section and why does the district feel they need one? Well, I am so glad that you asked. For us at the district, environmental justice is a mindset. It's a mindset that everyone has a right to two things. That's fair treatment and meaningful involvement. And we work hard to ensure that we're doing our part to achieve both of these daily in the Cook County communities that we serve. Now, the formal definition of environmental justice, as defined by the Environmental Protection Agency, and it also has been adopted by the district, it is listed, I believe the slide, yes, listed on the slide, as the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, the regulations, and policies. Next slide. So, all that means for us regarding environmental justice, it means that everyone deserves a right to have access to green spaces, to clean water, to clean air, to non-toxic living conditions. And it's about making sure that no group of people, especially those who are impoverished and those who are not considered a financially viable investment, should bear a disproportionate share of any negative environmental consequences that result from industrial, governmental, and commercial operations or policies. Next slide. Thank you. And so, when we look at it, we just say that no community should be overburdened with those environmental hazards. And because of all the environmental injustices that exist, an environmental justice section is very much needed, and it is long overdue. There are studies that have been done by the Center for Neighborhood Technologies that show that 87% of flood damage insurance claims were paid to communities of color between 2007 and 2016. And according to the 2020 Air Quality Report, African Americans are 3 times more likely to die from exposure to pollution, which is a major contributor to heart disease, asthma, and premature death. We at the district are painfully aware of the insufficient and degraded water infrastructure impacting the environmental justice communities that are large contributors to the flooding issues. And so the district enforces a sewage and waste control ordinance to regulate and control the quantity and the quality of sewage and industrial waste and other waste that are entering the sewers in order to protect residents. And since we can't be everywhere, we ask you to be our eyes and our ears and report any odors that you experience and waterway blockages that are within Cook County. And we ask you to do that at our website at mwrd.org, or you can call 1-800-332-3867 in order to report those types of issues. Next slide, please. Now, I mentioned that environmental justice for us is fair treatment and meaningful involvement. Meaningful involvement means that we get your input on what you need that you feel that you need in order for you to be environmentally equal to communities that are not as racially diverse. For the district, meaningful involvement is community engagement, not just community outreach. So that means that we want to collaborate with the community. We want to hear your thoughts, and we want to incorporate your ideas when possible into our projects that are specifically designed for your needs and for your communities and our communities. Next slide, please. Earlier, Catherine mentioned some of our programs that we're initiating and that we're doing our partnership programs. Many of our environmental justice communities are unaware of the district partnership programs that can help minimize flooding in their areas. How do I know? Because I've called the municipalities, and when I tell them about these programs, they're like, oh, I didn't know that this was available. And so that's why the environmental justice section is needed, so that we can continue to reach out to let our communities know that there are things that you can do to be able to help mitigate flooding. As Catherine mentioned, we all have to work together. So our environmental justice section has been working with the stormwater section to notify those communities about these partnership programs like green infrastructure and stormwater partnership in order to help better our communities. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, we are concerned for not just for the communities regarding flooding, but we're also concerned about environmental justice for our employees, regarding our current and our future employees. So we have harassment and diversity training. We have supervisory training on coaching and mentoring. And we try to get employee feedback to transform the systems, policies, and practices that are within the organization. We're partnering with human resources in order to implement diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and to create career paths through internships, mentoring, and apprenticeship programs. And we work hard to recruit and retain underrepresented talent, which is reflected in our 2022 racial diversity data. And that data actually showed that we had 49% of all of our new hires in 2022 were minority, and 33% of all new hires were women. 48% of all of our promotions in 2022 were minority, and 31% of all of our promotions were women. And 45% of the district's overall workforce was minority in 2022. And so we are working very diligently on environmental justice concerns. Next slide, please. And so that requires us sometimes to think outside of the box, to not do what always has been done. And that's the only way that we can grow and progress. And with that said, what you see on the screen before you is part of the Calumet Water Reclamation Plant Community Partnership Council. We've worked with our Public Affairs Department to help facilitate this first ever Community Partnership Council. And this council consists of concerned citizens just like you, who volunteered their time for this 2-year commitment, and they're taught what the district does and how we can collaborate in order to mitigate flooding in our communities. And they go back and take it back to their organizations and their groups, and then together we make a difference. Next slide, please. Another way we're thinking outside of the box. Earlier this year, we partnered with the Pullman National Historical Park, the National Park Foundation, and People for Community Recovery for the History and Hope program. And that's where we mentored approximately about 20 at-risk youth from underserved communities, where we were explaining to them how pollution impacts our water environment and their community. The program educated youth from Chicago's most exposed and challenged communities on the best practices to adapt and build resilience to climate change, with the purpose of nurturing some future change makers. Next slide. Along with this work, the Pullman Tech Workshop, they invest in this community by educating and inspiring our next generation of historic trade workers on Chicago's South Side through their apprenticeship training workshops, and transitional employment. Next slide, please. Think we missed a slide? Can you back it up? Forward? Okay. So I think they kind of forwarded me up. Wow, okay. So regarding our History and Hope program, there were some posters that the students actually did. And they completed those projects, and they showed how they were developing and learning. They did some talks on water and toxic soil and food deserts. And so when we looked at this, and we looked at what we can do in order to minimize flooding locally, and I'm gonna need you to bear with me for a second. I'm gonna blame my parents for this one. When I was younger and in kindergarten, I missed a day of show and tell, and everybody that hears me now has to kind of go through this with me, because I got to make this day up. And so, if you can see this from where you're sitting, if you look at this, if you think of this part right here as your pipes that's coming in from your house, your pipes coming in from your kitchen, everything, this right here is just your pipe that takes you to your local sewer, which is the brown tube. So this would be what professional people would call a lateral. So as you can see, these pipes are a lot smaller than this local sewer, okay? And this right here is the drain, the red. So we've got rainwater coming into this same local sewer as your pipes that's coming in from your house, from when you're flushing your toilets and from your kitchens and everything like that. And then you've got this little green drain, which is your downspout. So all of this is going into this one little tube right here. And so you've got this much water, and think about it, it's not just your house. I'm just looking at your house. Think about every house is going in this same little local sewer. So it's gonna start to get plugged and get overflow. And so what we have to do is we have to acknowledge that, okay, this is the local sewer. This does not concern the district, the local sewer. This is your municipality, the brown tube. However, this red one is our interceptor. And that brown tube goes into our interceptor. And then this is the part that takes you to us where we treat the water in the red one. So see, it's a lot bigger than the local sewers. So your municipality is responsible for your local sewers. We're responsible for this big red part, those interceptors. So if we plug this, you're gonna get a backup, right? You're gonna get a backup because it's not being able to go through here. This is plugged, your local sewers are plugged. So that's why we kind of try to work together to make sure that we get the municipalities have to clean their local sewers. We televise our interceptors. We go back through and check and make sure that our interceptors are clean. But that's why we said we have to work together, because guess what? If you've got a pinch line right here in this lateral, you're gonna have something bagged up in your house. And so you can be bagged up before the local sewers even have enough room. And so that's why we ask you all to work together. If you remove this little downspout, you got more room in here now for more water to come in. More of your rainwater that's coming from heaven, and then more of the other water. So then that water isn't coming in. And so that's why we ask us to work together. So that's why I said part of it is the district, part of it is your municipality, and part of it is us, you. And so this is the time where we ask you to do your part. I know we all got cousin Pookie that did that week of plumbing school, and we said we're gonna let him fix this and check this for us, but there's a time when we have to go to the real plumbers and let them check out our lines for us, because that $3,000 or $4,000 damage in the basement, that gets serious. So that's what we have to do, to get those checked, to make sure that we're not part of the problem. And this is, plugged before we even get to our local sewer systems. Okay? And so together we can and will make a difference. And that's why we said that we need all of us to work together in order to do what we can in order to improve our flooding situations. Together we can do it. Thank you.
Yes, that was Lolita Thompson, our principal civil engineer. That prop was awesome. Thank you so much. I hope that gave you all a little clarity of what's going on. Also, I see Representative Justin Slaughter has joined us, so if you can wave to everyone. Thank you for coming out. One reason why I'm pointing out our electeds that stopped by, one, I think it's important for you all to know that they basically know that this is an issue too, and they're working with water reclamation to address stormwater management, but also they understand the importance of improving our local infrastructure too. So often when we're trying to reach out for funds and stress the issue that our local infrastructure being improved and being updated is so important, Representative Slaughter and Representative Evans, who were here earlier today, they're the ones that will help me be that voice at the table at Springfield to make sure we get those funds for those stormwater management projects and things like that. And then our congressmen are the ones who help me when we go to DC for those projects. So thank you for coming out, Justin. Next up, we have Mr. Ted Kozowski, who is with our HR department. He's going to basically let us know about how to get jobs at MWRD and what resources we have available. Ted?
Good afternoon. Thank you all for inviting me here today. I appreciate it. Thank you, President Steele. Thank you to the congregation. I am Ted Kozowski. I'm the Director of Human Resources at the Water Reclamation District. I have been at the Water Reclamation District for 25 years. So I feel like I have done some good work here in bringing some of the top talent that you've seen here today, and we want to keep doing that going forward. And that's why I am here today, as well as Yolanda Hopkins, who is in the room here from our Human Resources Department. After the presentation, we're going to stick around and answer any questions you might have today with regard to careers at the MWRD. Next slide, please. All right, I know we're getting long into the day here, but I'm not going to go through every single one of these departments, but these are the major departments here at the Water Reclamation District that help us fulfill our mission. And you see departments such as finance, human resources, information technology, law, maintenance and operations, engineering, our procurement materials management department, treasury, general administration, which includes subgroups of the diversity section that you just heard Lolita, or I should say the diversity and contracting section is part of that group, as well as our administrative services division and our public affairs division, which you heard Allison come from. And I think in showing these departments and knowing and understanding the critical role that they play to our organization, what's more important to understand is it's a long list of departments, but in each of these departments consists 260 different job classifications, 260 different job classifications. And they include titles such as, and I'm not going to go through every one of them here, but pollution and laboratory technicians, laborers, accounting clerks, buyers, storeroom specialists, administrative clerks, attorneys, engineers, scientists, and so many more. Next slide, please. Okay, the district is an equal opportunity employer, and we take great pride in ensuring that our workforce is diverse and reflective of the communities that we serve. I think you heard some statistics from Lolita that show we are really working hard at that, but we know we can always do better, which is why we have a group in the HR department that goes out and recruits not just at local colleges and job fairs, but also attend community events like this, which are so important to our recruitment efforts. As of today, you heard President Steele say that the district has nearly 2,000 positions at the district. Right now, we have about 1,900 employees, so we know we've got vacancies out here, and that's why we like to be out in groups and areas like this where we can tell the communities what the district does and the kind of jobs that we have to offer. Next slide, please. All right, some of the benefits from working at the district include competitive wages, health and life insurance benefits. We have a full suite of those types of very rich benefits. a very robust and healthy pension plan thanks to efforts of our internal staff and our Board of Commissioners that supports the pension plan. Sick leave benefits, and more importantly, if you have some sort of a major illness, disability benefits. Paid holidays, paid vacation, and tuition reimbursement, because we want to, as part of one of our strategic plan initiatives, it's investing in our employees, developing our employees. So we have a very robust tuition reimbursement program to help our staff. If they're satisfied with where they are in their careers, that's fine. If they want to go further, we have benefits that allow them to educate themselves to move into positions that will have them contribute at even greater levels for the organization. And finally, we have an employee credit union which helps just establish very basic things such as checking accounts for direct deposit to go into, or loans to purchase cars or even homes. It's a very comprehensive benefit package. Next slide, please. All right, so the district does operate under a civil service system for most of our jobs. Most of the job classes that we have at the district require an employee or a prospective employee to take a civil service examination and to be on an eligible list before they can be hired. These eligible lists are usually out for a 3-year period. Some classes are shorter than that, but most of them are through a 3-year period. And we give tests. They're continuous. We're always giving exams, but we give exams typically on a 3-year schedule. So each job classification typically comes up every 3 years in a cycle, which is why the next piece, as far as how we recruit, is very important. Next slide. So how do we find out more information about jobs and what's out there? The district has an online employment center, and you can reach it by going to the district's website under districtjobs.org. And the beauty of it is that it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's important now as we see that kids and other individuals are on their phones all the time. You can now access our job sites, our job posting sites on your mobile device or on a computer, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Next slide. And this is a really tiny slide. Yolanda and I in the back, after our presentation today, have handouts that have all of the website information about districtjobs.com. But when you go to our online employment center, there's a whole bunch of different things that you can do. And the first thing is to go out there and look at what jobs are currently open and available now for filing an application. The other thing you can do is, if there isn't a job that you're interested open at the current moment in time, you can fill out an employee interest or a job interest card, and you would be notified when that opportunity is going to be open for filing. Now, to submit an application, you do need to have an email address. But to be notified about future job opportunities, you can either give us a mobile number and be notified about future job opportunities that you're interested in, or the email, or both, so that you won't miss out on those opportunities when they come up. The other thing, the next slide, please. We may have advanced one too many, but that's okay. One of the other very robust features of our online employment center is all those 260 job classifications that exist. If one wants to find out what kind of jobs exist at the district, if you want to take the time, and we encourage all prospective employees to do so, to go to that web page, and you can look at all of the different duties and responsibilities, the job titles, as well as the requirements for being able to fill out an application and be eligible to take one of the civil service exams. So that is a very robust website to go to for looking at our jobs, and I encourage everyone to do so. We'll have handouts in the back of the room afterwards in order to take that away with you today. All right, next slide, please. Another very important program that we're very proud of, and we just started it back up for the first time since the onset of COVID, is our internship program. And I think you've heard President Steele talk about, she's one of the graduates of the internship program, and it just shows how important finding those students, those young minds, and challenging them to be interested in wastewater careers. So our opportunities and internships, this year we hosted 50 different interns in every one of those departments that I showed you earlier on that screen. They served in all different areas, and they had the opportunity to actually take what they have learned in school and see what that career might look like on a real, up-to-date, live, in-person experience at an employer, and a very significant employer, the Water Reclamation District. For internships, next slide. What do you have to do to be eligible for an internship program? For the internship program, you need to either be enrolled in a college or university program. Right now, all of our internships for the 2023 year have now concluded, but we will be in November and December of this year posting those opportunities for next year. So going to that district job site, those internships will start being posted for next year. Those positions pay $18 an hour, and you're eligible to work for 119 days under the internship. The only thing you need to do is, again, be enrolled in school, have a recommendation letter from the school, and a letter of interest expressing why you would like to work at the MWRD. So with that, I will conclude my presentation, and again, as I stated, I will be in the back of the church today along with Yolanda to answer any questions and pass out information about our internships. The other thing that I think is really important is we have a listing of current opportunities that are going to be available in the next coming weeks and months. So that would be a good way for one to gauge what types of opportunities are coming up, as well as visiting that website. Again, I thank you very much for your time and attention today, and it's events like this that help us reach out into the communities and get the top talent that we pride ourselves in bringing to the district to make us what we are. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ted. That was Ted from our HR department. Next, we have Mr. Rich Martinez, who will discuss how to do business with the district. He is our acting diversity administrator. Everyone give Rich a round of applause.
Thank you, President Steele. Good afternoon, church. Thank you for hosting us. My name is Rich Martinez. I am the acting diversity administrator for the Water Reclamation District. I've been with the district for 24 years, and I'm glad to be accompanied today by one of our newest diversity officers out in front, Desiree Young, who happens to be a Trinitarian. So diversity, doing business with the district. The district's mission statement. Go to the next slide, please. The purpose of the MWRD Affirmative Action Program is to mitigate the present effects of discrimination based on race, ethnicity, or sex in opportunities to participate on MWRD contracts and to achieve equitable utilization of MBEs and WBEs in certifications and compliance. Our mission is to ensure competitive and equal opportunities for minority-owned, women-owned, and even veteran-owned businesses on the performance of MWRD contracts. Next slide, please. Vendor registration and certification. You can go to the district's website, mwrd.org, click on the Doing Business tab, and you'll see both the procurement and affirmative action sections listed there where you can fill out an online vendor registration form. The procurement department will then issue you a vendor registration number, and then upon receiving that registration number, you can follow up with us in diversity, and then we will then work with you to get certified as either a minority-owned business, a woman-owned business, or a veteran-owned business. The district is a self-certifying agency, but we do have streamlined certification processes for firms that are certified by either the City of Chicago or Cook County. Next slide. Types of contracts that we assess in the diversity section for potential goal attainment. Those include engineering construction contracts, maintenance and operation construction contracts, professional services, which could include engineering consulting services, or other professional services such as HR, public affairs, monitor, and research. We also assess our intergovernmental agreements with suburban municipalities for potential goal attainment, as well as job order contract. And so we review and examine each of these contracts on a contract by contract basis to determine if we can place affirmative action goals of 20% MBE, 10% WBE, and 3% VBE on those contracts in excess of $100,000. Now, in addition to us assessing whether or not we can achieve affirmative action goals on those contracts, we also assess those contracts for apprentices and apprentice hours. And so we do have a program in place where we can place hours on those construction contracts that provide opportunities for both minority and females to work as apprentices on those construction contracts. Next slide. Thank you. Accessing bid invitations and information, once again, on our webpage, mwrd.org. Doing business with us, contract announcements, you can find out what's out on the street. You can also take a look at who are some of those prime contractors that are looking at those contracts. There's a plan holders list for you that you can take a look at. You can also access contracts that are being currently reviewed and those that have also already been awarded. Next slide. All right, coming soon. Thanks to the Board of Commissioners, we just passed our small business program RFP that'll be on the street soon. So we're going to be working on implementing a small business program at the district, which is a race and gender neutral program. And then we're also working towards the implementation of a mentor protege program, which will enable prime contractors to work with smaller contractors in mentoring them and helping them grow size and capacity. And then finally, there's also a technical assistance program that we're also working towards that will provide resources and services to our MW and VBE business community. Next slide. So we do a lot of outreach and diversity, like today, for example. We also attend a number of other diverse business organization events throughout the year, but then we also host our own. Earlier this year, we hosted our first ever virtual vendor fair, and on Tuesday, October the 17th, we're going to be conducting and hosting our Diverse Business Summit, Doing Business with MWRD, a 2024 forecast. That's going to be held at Kennedy King College. That is free, so we want to definitely extend the invitation to each of you. Next slide. Contact information for myself in the diversity section. I can be reached at area code 312-751-4034. Can also be reached via email at martinezr@mwrd.org. Want to say that we do have vendor packets available in the front. Desiree Young has those available with all kinds of great information as far as doing business with the district and the district's affirmative action program. Thank you for having us today. Thank you for hosting us, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. So, one, I want to thank everyone for just sticking out through this presentation. We wanted to make sure, definitely I wanted to make sure that you all received all the information you could just about what we do at Water Reclamation, what's available. So I hope it was beneficial to you. But now we are available to answer any questions or concerns you may have. After we get through the question and answer period, we will raffle off 2 rain barrels, and hopefully you all can take them with you when you win them, but if not, we'll deliver it to you. And we have plenty of information as stated at the tables in the back or outside the sanctuary that you could pick up for additional information. But do we have any questions? Now that can be, I think we'll have maybe engineering, Catherine, come up and tag on to my response. But we are in communications with the city of Chicago to do a few pilot programs now. We've had pilot programs on the table before that fell off, honestly, when COVID hit in 2020. So we do see the need for that, and we are trying to work with communities and work with the city of Chicago to put programs together to help with that situation. But Catherine O'Connor might be able to give you a more direct answer or response.
And if I may add to that, particularly as regards to the basement and then the tree roots are a problem as well. Maybe.
No, now the tree roots, that's a different topic. Tree roots are a problem, and even with planting the saplings, I recommend don't plant them by your house unless you live in an open field, open area. You could plant the trees there, but often I think about when you consider planting a tree, as far as they grow wide up top, the roots will grow that wide down beneath, and they can't interfere with your line. So I would stay away from the trees. Now, as far as, can you repeat the initial question, though?
So the initial question was in relationship to vendors that you might be aware of that facilitate the repair of the basements, the tuck pointing, et cetera, the ceiling and the grouting.
Thank you. That's a very good question. We're very reluctant to recommend vendors. We don't want to leave anybody out. We know who's out there, but we don't believe we have a comprehensive list. So we do encourage you to have a bonded, Better Business approved vendor, and there are quite a few out there that'll do the grouting and make sure your basement is waterproof.
So then, if I can just repeat what I just heard, you don't provide any recommendation, but do you have a list?
No, we don't. Well, we feel like the list would be recommendation.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sorry.
There's another question. How do youth programs, how do young persons who are educated and trained join the union to participate with NWRD? Is that something that they need to do?
And I'm going to ask you to repeat that question. I'm sorry, because you all passed me a note. They want me to say that the city of Chicago has a list of licensed contractors, I guess online, that you can refer to.
Right.
Now, as far as, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Okay. The question, and if I can interpret the question, is youth and young persons who are educated and trained in the field, is it required that they join a union to participate as a vendor, or do they need to be union certified to participate? And if so, is there any recommendation in that regard?
To work at the water reclamation, we do follow the MPLA.
Could you tell us what the MPLA is?
I'm going to bring staff up to make sure you get the correct response.
Thank you. As far as, and I'm not sure, I think President Steele was going down a different path with regard to working at the district. You do not need to be a member of the union to work at the district, but you need to meet the minimum requirements for any of our skilled trade craft positions. As far as contractors, we do follow what's called a multi-project labor agreement, which requires the contractors to pay prevailing wage rates and honor the terms of collective bargaining agreements.
And so there's another question. We're talking about the downspouts. So are you recommending that we remove those downspouts?
Yes, definitely recommending you disconnect your downspout.
And then use the rain barrels?
You don't have to necessarily use a rain barrel. I promote the rain barrels because then you're able to recycle the water and conserve water. So you're getting a 2-for-1 if you do that. But if you disconnect the downspout and just basically change the direction away from your house now, and then hopefully not towards someone else's house, but just away from your house, that water is not going through the local sewer line. So you're just basically freeing up that much space when we have those heavy downpours for the water to travel through the local sewer lines to get to the MWRD. You can collect a lot of water from your roof when it's raining that goes down that downspout. It'll be hard. You won't believe it until you actually, if you put a rain barrel underneath the downspout, then you could visually see it. And the rain barrel will fill up fast in a heavy downpour. And just think, if everyone had a rain barrel under their downspout, that's about 55 gallons of water, I believe. So 55 times 40 houses on a block, and just keep doing that multiplication. That's how much water you could possibly have out of your local sewer lines.
So you would suggest that either you can disconnect and then maybe direct it into your yard
Yes.
instead?
Disconnect and point it away
Rain
from your
barrel
house.
in yard.
Or put the rain barrel underneath.
Okay, thank you. Are there any additional questions? Please. Hold on a second. We're going to ask him to repeat the question.
Okay. For Director O'Connor. Oh, right. Oh, okay. Well, I was just wondering, is there a system, well, not a system, but is there a possibility of putting a check valve on a person's property on the line, the transport line, so they wouldn't have that type of problem? And if that's the case, make that known to all the general public, and even create a program whereas the city might kick in some money and then you pay your money, so to prevent that from happening.
Yes, there are check valves with ejector pumps, and if you do put a check valve, so a check valve is a one-way valve that makes sure that nothing can come back into the house. That stops. That does have to be maintained annually. I met people on the west side that had check valves, they hadn't been maintained, and they flooded the same as the people that didn't have the check valves. So it's very important to do the maintenance. Overhead sewers with ejector pumps are more effective, so those are options. But as a first step, if we could get everybody disconnected and reassess. But certainly, if you want to protect your basement, a check valve with regular maintenance or an overhead sewer does provide significant protection. Thank you.
Are there any additional questions? I think we've answered all, and we absolutely want to thank Commissioner Steele, President Steele, and the staff for taking the time today to be with us and provide the great information. Again, you have brought us a lot of information that it is our plan to distribute that information to the congregation. And so we will hopefully be able to do that because the information is necessary. As well as we will be showing the video. It's recorded, it's live streaming currently, and we will continue to show that. It was very informative. I learned quite a bit. And I'm sure that the rest of the community, we sat next to each other and was like, oh, didn't know that. Oh, this is good information. And it's very much appreciated. And so our program chair, Harold Williams, will go to the mic. Thank you.
And if I could just say one more time, thank you all so much. We appreciate all of you taking an interest in the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago, and know that we are available to answer any questions or concerns you have. After this, anytime, just please email us, reach out to us. I'm on every social platform you can imagine, and the MWRD is too. So don't hesitate. We want to work for you, so thank you.
We also want to make sure that we acknowledge the fact that both our senior pastor, Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III, and First Lady Monica Moss stayed for the presentation. So we are most certainly grateful. Thank you. Harold?
Yes. All right. Thanks again to everyone who is here. You may have seen me jumping around trying to make sure that you get a card. However, because we have to be out of here at a certain time, the card that you do have, if you need to fill it out, you put down your contact number. That way her office can still follow up with you all as well. So once again, this is the CIS ministry here at Trinity. CIS stands for Church in Society. Woo woo. And thank you to President Steele office. We got one more gift prize. No, we're going to do it in the lobby. So in the lobby, we're going to do a raffle because this still is a sacred place, so we cannot do that in here. And it's respectful. So we're going to go out into the lobby. But please fill out your card because you know how we get.